All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're putting on our detective hats to figure out exactly why your dog or cat is losing their hair, and more importantly, how we can fix it naturally. We're going to look really closely at the clues our pets are leaving us, relying purely on visual evidence and proven natural remedies to crack the case. So let's get started.
Here's our roadmap for the investigation. We'll start by learning how to play pet health detective. Then we'll investigate those weird non-inflamed bald spots, followed by the red, itchy, and inflamed ones. After that, we'll dig into internal and unusual causes. And finally, we'll wrap up by building your very own natural treatment toolkit. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Playing Pet Health Detective.
So the very first thing you need to do as an investigator is get right up close and thoroughly examine that bald area. You can't just guess from across the room. You've got to ask yourself one absolutely crucial question right off the bat. Is the skin inflammatory or non-inflammatory? The presence or complete lack of redness and irritation dictates our entire investigation path. I mean, are there crusts, little red lines, or does the skin actually look completely normal, just bald?
When you're looking at that bald patch, always keep the rule of 3 in mind. First up, check for any redness or inflammation. Second, factor in the age of your animal. Are we talking about a young pup or a senior? And third, pinpoint the exact location of the hair loss. Because, a puppy with a bald spot on its face is a totally different case file than an older dog losing hair symmetrically on its sides. This brings us to 2 totally distinct pathways. On one side, we have our non-inflamed culprits, things like Demodex and ringworm, that usually show up in young animals with normal-looking skin. On the other side, we've got the inflamed suspects, like allergies, mange, and bacterial infections, leaving the skin red, crusty, and super itchy. Once you categorize the hair loss into one of these 2 camps, boom, your suspect list instantly shrinks.
Moving right along to Section 2, non-inflamed bald spots.
Let's take a closer look at those sneaky culprits that leave the skin looking totally normal. If you spot normal-looking skin but missing hair on a young dog's face or front paws, your #1 suspect is Demodex. It's actually a microscopic parasite living right inside the hair follicles. Fun fact, we humans actually have a version of this living in our own eyebrows. Wild, right? But in dogs, it usually clears up on its own as their immune system gets stronger. We just want to give that immune system a little targeted boost. Now, if you're dealing with a young kitten sporting a hidden ringworm disguise on their face or limbs, and remember, ringworm is actually a fungus called microsporum, definitely not a worm, you'll want to follow these exact steps. First, absolutely make sure you wear gloves because the stuff is highly contagious. Then, apply an over-the-counter antifungal cream like cloudtriazole or even some apple cider vinegar from the pantry topically to the skin. Do this twice a day for about 3 to 4 weeks.
Next up is Section 3. Red, itchy, and inflamed.
All right, let's talk about the inflamed suspects. These are, hands down, the most common reasons pets end up at the vet. This is where the scratching and the real misery begin. What's super fascinating here is that even just 1 or 2 measly flea bites can trigger what's called miliary dermatitis. You might not even see a full-blown flea infestation, just small red bumps right around the tail base caused by an intense allergic reaction to flea saliva. So controlling external parasites with natural deterrents like witch hazel or cedar oil is absolutely key. You've got to eliminate that source of irritation first. Now, if your dog is scratching intensely, especially if they just came back from a kennel, and they go absolutely crazy when you gently fold over their ear tip, you need to rule out sarcoptic mange. This one is brutal, caused by the scabies mite. Unfortunately, there really isn't a great natural home remedy for this specific intense itching. It's going to require a specific veterinary treatment, like Revolution, to properly clear up. Allergies really set up the perfect storm for secondary infections to just bloom. We're talking yellow yeast gathering in the armpits and crevices, or staph bacteria creating red circular rings on the groin that pet owners constantly mistake for ringworm. It is absolutely vital to understand that the hair loss here is just a secondary symptom. It was the underlying allergy that laid the groundwork for the yeast or bacteria to take over in the first place.
Here's an interesting one. If your pet develops a localized bald spot right where they recently got a vaccination, often right between the shoulder blades, they're likely dealing with an injection site reaction. The inflammation from the shot literally damages the hair follicles, causing the hair to fall out. To help with this, you can apply topical vitamin E to significantly soothe that localized inflammation.
Let's dive into Section 4, Internal and Unusual Causes.
Sometimes symmetrical or just plain weird hair loss patterns point us toward internal metabolic diseases or really unusual conditions. This breakdown highlights some of those odd suspects where sex hormones or unknown factors just completely halt the hair growth cycle. Whether we're looking at alopecia X in Pomeranians, pattern baldness spreading from a Dachshund's ear tips down to their neck, or maybe a husky whose coat just refuses to grow back 6 months after being shaved for a hot spot, well, for all of these, melatonin becomes your absolute best defense to kickstart that growth cycle again.
Then we have follicular dysplasia. This is an intimidating sounding condition often seen in breeds like Rottweilers and Dobermans, usually starting before they're 3 years old. You'll see patchy, moth-eaten areas of hair loss. Now, it's not actually itchy, but it is pretty tricky to treat. Basically, you just need to keep that skin deeply hydrated using a humectant, like castor oil, to lock the moisture in, while also keeping an eye out to treat any secondary skin infections.
But sometimes there's actually no physical skin disease at all. Psychogenic alopecia is driven purely by stress. Your pet is just obsessively licking one specific spot on their body as a coping mechanism. The good news, this responds beautifully to natural anti-anxiety treatments. Think things like L-theanine, valerian root, or, once again, our very versatile friend, melatonin. Remember, you've always got to think like a detective. If you see a cat frantically licking its groin, they might not have a skin issue at all. They might actually be trying to soothe an inflamed bladder hidden just beneath the surface, a condition called idiopathic cystitis. This can be wonderfully managed with a natural anti-inflammatory like CBD oil, which helps reduce the bladder inflammation while simultaneously easing the anxiety that's driving the obsessive licking. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, your natural treatment toolkit. All right, let's gather up all our evidence and walk through the exact step-by-step home remedies you need to build out your natural treatment toolkit. To naturally treat Demetics, that microscopic follicle parasite we talked about earlier, you'll want to follow these exact dilution steps. First, measure out 1/4 teaspoon of neem oil and mix it with 2.5 teaspoons of topical vitamin E. That gives you a safe 10-to-1 ratio that delivers the highly effective neem oil right into the hair follicles, while the vitamin E stimulates the local immune system. Just use a syringe to apply that mixture directly to the skin twice a day for 4 weeks. Now, what about those red secondary yeast or bacterial infections, like staph? Well, you can slowly steep a 1/2 cup of green tea, let it cool for about 20 minutes, and mix in 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Then soak a gauze pad in this mixture and gently wipe the affected area twice a day for about 14 to 21 days. It's a fantastic combo. The green tea tackles the inflammation and surface bacteria, while the apple cider vinegar steps in as an incredible natural antifungal. And when you're using melatonin to manage those symmetrical hair growth cycles or post-clipping alopecia, always remember the golden rule: 1 milligram. Specifically 1 milligram per 10 pounds of body weight, up to a strict maximum of 6 milligrams given exactly 1 hour before their bedtime. You take away the anxiety, you deal with the disease. This quote brilliantly captures the ultimate takeaway for conditions like psychogenic alopecia and idiopathic cystitis. It just goes to show that your pet's emotional state is so deeply tied to the health of their skin and coat. Honestly, sometimes the most powerful skin treatment you can provide isn't a topical cream at all. It's just creating a calm, safe environment. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to really challenge your inner detective. Ask yourself, what is the underlying anxiety or the unseen irritation that your pet's missing hair is really trying to reveal? Look past the bald spot, consider the whole animal, and I promise you, you'll be well on your way to cracking the case.